National Fire Radio.
And we're back for another week on the National Fire Radio podcast. I'm not going to take up too much of your time, but this week, the week of May 22nd, 2023, it's Terry's birthday. My wife, Mrs. National Fire Radio. She'll probably hate that I even said that, but she doesn't listen to this anyway. So I'm taking that day and enjoying time with her. She deserves it. She puts up with all my crap, all my travel, and all the podcasts we do and everything else in between. So I am spending the day with her, rightfully so. But this week is all new episodes with fantastic guests, including a new episode from Pip from the Size Up. So hang on this week. We appreciate the support. Like, share, subscribe on the channels in which you listen. We appreciate the support. And as you fill out, subscribe or share or leave some comments, it helps us in the ratings. And, of course, ratings help push us up the line and get more followers and listeners. And we appreciate all of that. And that's how we build a community. So we appreciate you being here with us. Please give my sponsors and the people that trust us with their message a few minutes of your time before we roll into the daily episode. Thanks for tuning in. Jeremy, National Fire Radio. Hey guys, before we start the podcast, real quick, I want to mention the Gone to Texas Fire Forum and Expo being held in Arlington, Texas on June 9th and 10th. Myself, I'm going to be emceeing the event for 2 days with nationally renowned speakers that will be there for the weekend. Mo Davis, Clyde Gordon, Rick George, Mickey Farrell, Jacob Johnson, Dennis Riley, and so on. The list goes on and on. I was there last year, helped MC the event last year. It is a growing conference in an incredible venue. Globe Life Field, which is home to the Texas Rangers in Arlington, Texas, right in the entertainment district, right at the PBR bar, which we're going to have a social after the first night. I'm telling you right now, there's no other venue like this. The room actually overlooks the field. You get to walk the stadium. It is such a cool venue. Arlington, Texas, June 9th and 10th. Check them out. Go on to TexasFireForum.com. Or go to Facebook and look them up there, too. Go on the Texas Fire Forum where you can buy your tickets, get great hotel rates. And if anybody's asking you where you're going this summer, you tell them, go on to Texas. This episode's brought to you by Taylor's Tins. Taylor and his crew at Taylor's Tins have been manufacturing aluminum helmet fronts since 2017. With over 200,000 tins in the market, they are a leader in the helmet front space. Custom design, one-offs to department orders, they can turn them around within 24 to 48 hours. Customer service is what they pride themselves on, and they provide nothing but top-shelf product and service to their customers. Check them out at taylorstins.com and check out their full line of product offering. They've always been a very strong supporter since day one with the National Fire Radio podcast and platform, and Taylor and his crew have become dear friends of ours, and we appreciate the support. And at checkout, for a little extra bonus, use coupon code NFR Sent Me. That's NFR Sent Me for a discount on your order. Exclusions do apply. Anyway, check out taylorstins.com for the latest and greatest offerings from Taylor and his crew. And in the words of Taylor, stop burning up leather. Hey everyone, Jeremy, National Fire Radio. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I don't know. I mean, this is probably the most famous guy I've had on. I don't know. This is going to be a fun conversation. Robert Burke, also known as Bobby Burke. Bobby, thanks for joining me, buddy. I appreciate this.
Jeremy, thanks for having me. Thank you for all the good work. I was honored to be asked to be on.
Oh, come on. This is cool, man. So let's talk about a couple things, right? First off, if you're not familiar with who, our listeners, if they're not familiar with who you are, not only are you a 22-year firefighter with the Ocean Beach, New York Fire Department out on Long Island, New York, you're also an actor. On the big screen, and you do movies and television, movies like Tombstone and Thinner. You've acted in Academy Award nominated films, but I know from the group that's listening to this podcast, they're going to know you probably best for your role as Mickey Gavin on Rescue Me. Would that be correct?
I think your demographic would probably know me as Cousin Mickey. Yes.
Cousin Mickey. Absolutely, man. Well, I love it. Well, thank you for joining me today. It's a lot of fun. You and I connected over social media, which is really cool. I don't have a lot of blue checkmark friends on social, so, it was like, who's this guy? But very cool. And what I think is super unique and what I really want to capture is really kind of your story, because I think your story is going to be quite unique to most people in your profession. I mean, you are an active firefighter, meaning literally 10 minutes before we hopped on this call, you sent me a video message and said, hey, I'm clearing from this run. I might be a few minutes late. I don't know how many Hollywood actors from TV or screen are actively riding fire apparatus in their communities.
I know one other. His name is Tim Guinea. He was in Ladder 49. We had a kind of a mutual experience connected to the FDNY. And then after 9/11, he through, I guess it's upstate somewhere. I don't know what county, but I know he's in New Paltz and he's still turning out. So he's 20 plus years also.
So
Tim Guinea. Yeah.
So I'm going to have to look him up, man. I'd love to make that connection. I just think it's super cool. But so are you telling me then September 11th was a moment for you in which brought forth your desire to pursue the fire service? Give me a little background on this.
Exactly. Like so many people in the fire service, I believe, it was a watershed moment. My best friend was captain of Ladder 3 truck, Captain Paddy Brown.
Sure, of course.
I'm actually sitting in the room where he used to live in my house here, and I've turned it into an office. So September 11th happens, and there was a couple of documentaries made. You hear me on the documentary on his answering machine. Hey, Pat, keep your head down. Give me the call. The call was, he was such a high profile guy that, anytime there would be, some major, response on his part, I'd say, give me a call later on. Let me know, because it would be on television, rope rescues, high-rise water. I'd rather high-rise, the waterside high-rise fire. It was the first time I think thermal imaging cameras were employed, the big old Argus 2s or something. And so Pat fell murdered on that day. And then his brother, Michael, who was a fireman in 37 and 40 on 125th Street in Manhattan, who put himself through medical school, became a doctor. So he can't get a flight where he's a doctor in Vegas. So he drives across country, comes to Ladder 3, says, I want to look for Pat. And he points to me and he goes, and you're coming with me.
Wow.
Now, I hung around with firemen because of where I grew up. And, both my parents are from Ireland. We lived in Washington Heights. I mean, you became a policeman. And if you had no sense, you became a fireman because, as the Irish would say, there was nothing out of it. Like a cop, you could go in and get a free sandwich somewhere, but
That's right.
A fireman, there was really nothing. So, so down we went to the side of the World Trade Center, and both Michael and I put time there. Michael passed away from 9/11 cancer, October 30th of 2020.
Wow.
And a lot of guys who get this cancer so far out, you get the call and it's like, oh, I thought I dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
And my good friend Eddie Meehan was a lieutenant in a 22 truck, and he 16 years afterwards expired from it. So anyway, Michael and I did a bunch of time looking for Pat, looking for the guys from 3 truck. They didn't start to be found until December. Okay. And so I went back to I was living in the city. I went back here, and I said, why should it always be Joe and Jim and John in the fire service? And why can't it be me? And I was 41. And so in 2002, signed up for the Suffolk County Fire Academy through Ocean Beach.
Wow.
And and it was good. I liked it. I was coupled with this 24-year-old guy, and I keep in good shape. I've always kept in good shape, and I liked it. And I was a little more mature and, not risk averse, but not stupid either.
Sure.
Like, not doing what I was not told to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
You have a little more sense. So going through fire school, I was a little whacked out about, the mechanics of it all. I never inclined to be a mechanical person. Guys like, Burke, you're getting into the chauffeur, pump operator stage. I'm like, no, I'm not. With a gun to my head, I don't want to get water out of a truck. I'm just not that guy. But I'm going to have to become that guy.
Yeah, sure.
So anyway, that's the genesis of my fire story is it's almost like a guy going down in the battlefield, and you just run up out of instinct to pick the flag up and just keep going, not to be dramatic or anything like that. But that's really what it was. And so all of my fire service, all of my foundation work is dedicated to Pat's memory.
So I didn't know that connection. So I'm sitting here like really intrigued. I mean, first off, for you, I mean, I think that's a fantastic analogy, by the way, being on the battlefield, picking up that flag and continuing on with it, right? It's the mission. It's the greater mission. Kudos to you. You know, that's incredible. And the fact that, you know, you found the fire service through the mission of your close friends and the sacrifices they've made. And it should be said, too, to your friend Michael, who passed from the World Trade Center cancer. I mean, the number has trumped the number that were killed that day by the World Trade Center cancer. And it's plaguing our communities, you know, ever more so now. So, I mean, you know, the best to you and you know, and the friendships that you've made along the way and those relationships is just powerful. How did you, where did the friendship with Paddy Brown come from? I mean, he's one of
family friends.
Okay.
You know, it's another funny thing. Another connection. I know you go to FDIC, was the Halton family.
Sure.
Bobby Halton's mother, Margaret, and his father, Felix. Well, we call them Bob. But his parents and my parents were very close in Long Island. And my parents were from Ireland. They didn't really associate with too many people.
Got it.
You know what I mean? They were very, very strict, very straight-laced, you know, clean cut, you know, that kind of thing. And they didn't suffer a fool's life. But I'll tell you, the Haltons were about as straightforward a family. And I remember years later when I was in the fire service and I was looking for like a work coat, you know, for the station. Is this, you know, online, modeled by Chief Halton. And I'm looking at this guy like, that's got to be him. Look at him. He looks just like his mother. So I email him. I says, hey, are you the same Halton who grew up, yada, yada? And he says, what's up, Rob? I've been watching you for you. I was like, oh, my God, it is him. So we reconnected, and it was a lot of fun because I remember him when he was sitting on a bike with the hair down to his ass, listening to the Grateful Dead. God only knows what else he was doing.
That's wild.
But he was not the Bobby Halton who would, you know, be the Penwell guy and the FDIC guy. And, you know, and then we had a chance to meet. He came out here. I think it was either Billy Goldfeder or his wife Terry's birthday. Oh, it was Terry's birthday. It was her 50th birthday. Because I got a keychain right here that I'm looking at. And Bobby came out, and boy, we were talking about, you know, the old days of growing up. I knew his sisters and his younger brother, and just a beautiful family. So yeah.
Well,
yeah.
There's a lot of connections to Long Island, New York. I mean, you know, it's, you know, you're surrounded by it, and so am I, right? I'm on the other side of New York City, right? I'm on the west side, you're on the east side. New York City's in between us, right? And so
absolutely.
The influence of New York City fire culture is you know, throughout our area. And so you're a half hour to an hour outside of the city. I'm, you know, a half hour outside of the city. So the influence is there. It's always there. And we have so many connections back to that job because the job is so big, right? And so on. So let me ask you, growing up in Washington Heights was, you know, you said either be a cop or a fireman. Cops get free sandwiches, but did you have a love for the fire, like an affection for it back then as a kid, watching like 84-34 turn out Washington Heights, you know, and watching them turn the corner? Like, did you have those moments as a kid?
You know, I did. We'd go down to 181st Street after church. Rescue 1, Rescue 3 was housed there, right across from the Blarney Stone, for God's sakes. So my father was in the Blarney Stone, and we would play on the rigs. I'm going to tell you straight up, honestly, that I didn't have, like, you know, it was fun to play on the rig, but I had no affinity. I had no affinity for the fire service or for the police service, really. But here's another thing. I hung out with firemen. I went out with them. We had dinners together. I had zero idea of what the job entailed. Just didn't know. I was like, you know, I'd hear them talk about stretching lines and this and that, but I couldn't. And then I wonder about the average civilian. You know what I mean? But me, I hung out with firemen and still couldn't make the stretch about what they do something with water, right? Hoses, you know. But I mean, what was actually entailed in the job, I had zero idea. And so the journey has been a lesson. And what I love more about it than anything is, you know, you use the word culture. It's a learning culture, you know, and I just love that. You know, I have new guys literally graduated last week. I said, well, how are they doing it now? Show me.
Yeah.
And I love the mind of the beginner. No two fires are going to like. How are you going to approach it? And so yeah, it's a learning culture, and certainly at my advanced age going through, I think it was an asset. But yeah.
Maturity plays a big role in the fire service, right? And, we bring kids in early, we expose them early. In the volunteer side, we try to expose them up to 14, 16 years old, right? We try to expose them early, get them hooked, and then get them the training they need as an adult so that they can serve their communities. In the career departments, a lot of guys are getting on early. They're getting on between 20 and 30 years old, and if not younger. And so maturity plays a big role in the fire service. And I think you going through, I think you said at 41 years old, you have a different mindset than that 20-year-old kid that's sitting across from you in that classroom.
Very much. I had an occasion to be at the FDNY Academy a week ago Friday, and a whole contingent of explorers came through, and they looked to be in their early and mid-teens and such. And Pat Brown was an explorer. He was kind of a famous and an infamous explorer, breaking into the rock, at night, operating lines, giving Willie, the night watchman, a bottle of blueberry brand.
I didn't know any. I've never heard of any of this. Really?
There's a famous story where they operated, a bunch of kids from Queens, met the kids from the Bronx, and they, set some pallets up, operated. The next morning, the temperature had dropped to like 8 degrees. The whole facility is frozen, and Willie's got some explaining to do. It's a true story. It's going into a book that somebody's writing right now. And exposing people early on, because then there's no illusions or delusions. It's just, this is what the job entails. I think a lot of people after 9/11 threw in because they wanted that unconditional favor, that stroking, that the fire service, and they wanted something from the outside coming to them. The fire service is from the inside of you going out. Do you know what I mean? And so a lot of people get here and they get disillusioned. Like, well, why isn't everybody? No. I love some of the stuff I'm reading like online lately about being in shape. If you don't consider yourself an athlete, you're in the wrong service. What was the other one? Oh gosh, I can't think of. But there's a lot of good stuff like that that just shatters these illusions as to what it is to be in a first responder. Yeah, it's not. The other one I love was it's like being an athlete, but you just don't get to pick when the game is.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to prepare for you today. I went for a swim in the ocean. I come back. And then all of a sudden we get banged out for a medical. But I'm like listening halfway. Elderly female, injuries result of, she ain't going anywhere. Boom, helicopter. Now I gotta go. So
yeah,
you never get to pick when the game is going to be played.
I find what's really interesting with your story though is you were surrounded with that Irish heritage growing up in the city, and then out in Long Island, you're surrounded by so many firefighters that it was just second nature. Yet you didn't really understand what the job entailed, right? And then
zero.
Yeah, and then you have friends though like Paddy Brown, which, I mean, highly, highly regarded on the job. I mean, even his last transmission on September 11th was, "I'm going to do my job." Like those words.
I belay your order. Yeah. I'm not leaving these people.
Yeah. Like, and you grew up with, or you were a part of that, you were surrounded by that. And I'm sure he carried himself like that on the job, just like he did off the job. And so for you then to find a calling in this, to see, I'm picking up this flag and moving it forward. I'm doing this now. I want to be involved. I want to be a part of this. I have to think, being a little bit older, along with the tutelage from all these people throughout your life up to 41 years old that have been in the fire service, and seeing how they carried themselves in this love for the job and so on, I'm sure that played a lot of role in how you performed and came into this job.
It has. I have to watch myself for being a prick. You know what I mean? Because the pressure I put on myself to perform, the way that I feel, I don't feel, it's not a feeling, it's a fact. The fact is the job should be performed a certain way. Buttoning up, that's a big thing with me. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Might seem small to you, but some of the guys we have at Suffolk County Fire are just wonderful. They're guys, moonlighting obviously from FDNY.
Sure.
But 5 seconds here with your boot, 10 seconds here getting this strap. Those are 45 seconds you're going to need later. So this type of math, I can understand that a little bit. And then to convey that, to pass that on to the new guy. Because, there's obviously, when you're new, there's this big picture, and it's very like, well, where do I begin? What I spoon feed everybody, okay, we're just going to start getting dressed. Now we're going to go over to the apparatus. Now find me this tool here. Don't put these irons down. The whole drill tonight. You never drop those irons, because I want you to get the feel. I want you to get the feeling of that weight in your soul. Do you know what I mean? Just these little. So now going back to Paddy. Paddy was a righteous guy. Like, he was the godfather of my kids.
Wow.
He was, I can't even say enough of the guy.
Yeah.
We had a lot of laughs. He was through a lot of trauma in terms of firefighters who had fallen while he was working. And, and everybody on the job at some point had given me their Paddy Brown story.
I'm sure.
And they're all pretty good stories. But, Pat was a very humble guy.
Yeah.
And I remember one metal day, we met down at this bar called the Metropolitan. It was a cop bar, okay? It was the preeminent cop bar on the planet Earth,
right.
Because it was right outside of 1PP. But his cousin Donnie owned it. So we'd always meet there, and I'd say, geez, Pat, 2 medals in 1 year, blah, 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 blah. And he says, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. He goes, don't kid yourself, Burke. He says, there's plenty of guys on this job for 40 years, never got a medal, who are better firemen than me.
Wow. Yeah.
That's all you can say about that guy.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, let me ask you this, right? I mean, so the influences you had along the way, where you are today, 22 years later, in your fire department and taking on leadership roles throughout it, and now being back to a senior black hat guy in the department and so on. You talked a lot about the methodology, needing that 45 seconds later, right? You were just talking about that from the Suffolk County Fire Academy and how important those things are to you. Was that also part of your profession? I mean, with acting? I mean, I don't want to just talk firefighting here. I want to talk about Bobby Burke. And, you grew up, you became a fireman secondary to your acting career, right? And I'm sure you wore some other hats along the way too. But, growing up in the city, moving to Long Island, how did you find your way into acting?
Oh, well, I could barely read when I got out of high school. No, I kind of fell into it. You know what I mean? I heard an actor, and I can't remember who said it recently. It's just escaping me. He says, when other people tried it and should have stopped, he kept going. And that's kind of the way I felt. I kind of fell into it, but not like the guys and dolls in Oklahoma, not high school. I got an internship in my senior year to go and perform with this theater. I was supposed to sweep floors and answer phones and paint scenery, but I auditioned for 2 shows, and now I'm on the road with these 2 shows. I'm having dinner at the Riviera Hotel and the restaurant at the top of the Watergate Hotel. I'm performing at the the JFK Center for the Performing Arts,
right?
Red Rock out west. I'm going all over the country. I'm making $150 in cash per diem a day in 1977. So my father, when I came home from that tour, I showed my father literally, proverbially, 2 shoeboxes full of cash, because I couldn't eat fucking $150 worth a day. Like 5. And he goes, what's that? And I said, that's what they gave me for acting. And he goes, what do you mean act? And I said, that's the per diem. That's what they gave me a day to eat. And he's looking at it. I remember, like, hey, can you spot me $50?
I bet. But it's a lot of money.
The funny, my father, when I said to him one time, I said, I think I want to be an actor. And he said the 3 famous words. He goes, a fucking what? And I said, an actor. And he goes, the poor guy, he was a longshoreman. He was the bartender. He was the super of our building. Yeah. He retired as a church custodian. 6'4", 275, big boy.
Yeah.
And he's looking at this son of his, this narrowback, as the Irish say, and he's like, an actor. I mean, he must have just thought, oh, where have I,
right? What?
And he wanted me to be a police officer,
sure,
in the worst way. Sure. But and we had hooks. We had hooks in the New York City Police Department, and big hooks too. So anyway, I just so then I pursued acting, and I went to several colleges. I went to the last college was SUNY Purchase. It was Edie Falco, Stanley Tucci, Wesley Snipes. A lot of very strong actors came out of that program. And when in my senior year there, my father passed away. He was he was my idol. And,
sure.
Then I took 5 years off of acting. I went to work as a contractor, bricklayer, painting, plastering, carpentry, you name it. And then a buddy of mine from college called and he says, "Oh, what are you doing? Are you I don't want to say what he said to me. He said, "Are you dead or are you in jail or what are you doing?" And I said, no, I'm all good. And he said, "Well, I'd like you to act in this movie." And that was 34 years ago.
Wow.
And so the movie was bought. I got agents, and the next thing you know, I was off. And that was it.
That's pretty wild.
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on this journey, I mean, going through and seeing, I mean, Law and Order, Rescue Me, a bunch of movies. I mean, you're talking, Academy Award nominated films, working alongside of, some of the biggest names in the industry. Did you see that coming from a kid from Washington Heights who moved to Long Island, New York? Like, is this what you saw?
No, like people say, "Oh, my dreams." I never had dreams. You can me. I just wanted to go from one day to the other without getting my ass kicked by somebody or having to dole it out. We were taught don't expect it, don't want it, because you are probably not going to get it. You know what I mean? And even as kids, as toys or anything like that, it was like no, not going to happen, and it didn't happen, and that was okay.
Yeah,
we were fine. We were happy. We were close. But no, I never had an affinity to be an actor. I still just think, I look at it, sometimes I hear my father say, "Oh, get a fucking real job, for God's sake, will you?" I mean,
that's funny, but he's got he's got to be so proud of you. Kidding me?
He's
100%.
He'd be the proudest guy in the whole world.
Plus, I think you've played a cop once or twice too, so I mean, that's close enough, no?
Good Lord, I'll be in my car in Manhattan sometime, and some squad car will look over at me, and they're like, "Wait a minute,
that's hilarious, right?"
And then they just proceed forward. They don't want to have anything to do with me. I think because I played the internal affairs guy for so long.
That's you're the bad guy, yeah, right.
So many of my friends were on the job that I saw. I could very much glean how they conducted themselves as police officers, as professionals.
Yeah.
And when you're an actor, you kind of absorb that, and you just hold the mirror up to it. And I've based, some certain characters on friends of mine, detectives, these types of things,
sure.
FBI agents. But yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's been a fun career. Nobody really, "Oh, you can't do that, Bob. You can't do this job. No, that's not good for you." I have complete autonomy, Jeremy. I can do whatever I like. Nobody bothers me, and it's been fun. I tell you, I really, I've been to places, that I would never in a million years have expected, and but what's funny now? We'll go back to the fire service.
Yeah.
We'll be emptying out a hotel. There's a bunch of girls coming out of the hotel. I have the hook and the can, and I'm going in, and somebody says, the show Gossip Girl that I used to do. Jesus, it was like a teen, melodrama. And the girls, "Aren't you Chuck's dad?" And I'm like, "Chuck's dad is dead," and they're like, "Wait a minute." We had a terrible call one night. It was violence in progress. I had, it was with rescue that night. They're just bringing up the stretcher. And I come into this room. Everybody's fighting everybody, like these couples. There's like 12 couples. And they're like, "Hey, it's Tucker, from Special Victims Unit."
That's hilarious.
So now everybody's like freaked out. Like, what's he doing here?
Yeah.
But so years ago, when we get a run and somebody say, "Hey, isn't that the guy from Rescue Me?" And my guy's like, "Yeah, that's him." And so we go back to the firehouse, and they're like, "Oh, we're 20 minutes because you're bullshitting." And I'm like, "Well, you're the fucking one who gave me up."
Yeah,
and
right.
Now,
yeah, exactly.
Right now, I can guarantee you, if somebody says, "Wait a minute, isn't that the guy from, blah, blah, blah," and my guy's, "Oh, no. He looks just like him.
Looks like him.
He gets that all the time.
Yeah, we want to get out of here.
Yeah, we want to get out of here. Let's go.
Yeah, right.
I want to get out of here.
Yeah.
So, So anyway, it's funny when those two lives intersect like that.
I can imagine, but I also think too, I think what's really important though, right? And what's important to you is a lot of the foundation work you do. And, you know, you have the ability to bridge these two worlds together because of, you know, your relationships on both sides of that fence, right? And so, I mean, talk about that a little bit, because I think it's so important. I know after 9/11, I mean, obviously September 11th was something that pushed you to do more, right? By joining the fire service and you know, and so on, through the mentorships of those that influenced you along your journey. But you also have the ability now to influence the acting world, that part of your life, about the importance of the fire service. Because I think, you know, after September 11th, and we have, you know, situations that occur in the American Fire Service, and people get on this, you know, this kick of supporting first responders, and the firefighters are the best. And then, you know, the cops went through a brutal beatdown over the last few years, and they're starting to come back up again. Like, people are realizing the importance of these jobs and so on. Unfortunately, it always takes something tragic to get people to put attention to it. But you being in that world, you can share that regularly with your coworkers, the actors you work with, the producers you work with, right? I mean, talk to me a little bit about how you bridge that conversation with the different friends that you have in the different worlds.
Well, let me singularly talk about somebody who has kicked it up and left it up. Just extreme dedication. I wrote him a note the other day. I said, "You have never failed the mission. You have never gotten mission. You might have gotten mission fatigue." Dennis Leary.
Yeah.
This guy, again, the genesis of which was the Worcester Cold Storage Fire, lost his cousin, rescue fireman.
That's right.
Jeremiah Lucy, good friend John Spade. So Dennis starts a Firefighter Foundation. I couldn't name another firefighter foundation in the United States, but he started one. So 9/11 happens, and he's poised to start helping in any way he can. You know, and then subsequently throughout the years, collecting money, raising money, and then, you know, about 7 years ago, he says, "You know what? It's one thing to write a check. Okay, here's a check for the Leary fire. Yeah, for the firemen. It's another thing to invite these people who are going to write the check to the FDNY Academy, to gear them up, to let them push a line, let them make a search, let them tear a car apart, let them, you know, knock down a car fire, let them rappel out of a 6-story window." And that's what we're doing now. It's called the Leary Firefighter Challenge. Executives can pay X amount of money and come and actually, you know, have some skin in the game. And what I always say is that, like, the next time they hear an engine or a truck go by, they'll have a little more, you know, 100%. Presence of mind. And you know, Dennis, I've always said that the Leary Firefighter Foundation has been a first responder to the first responders. I did a video where I just say, you know, people always assume that municipalities and towns and villages and counties, have all the money for the fire service. So yeah, let's give the guys everything they need. Nothing could be further from the truth. 100%. These guys out in, you know, Gary and Detroit, and they're like, I don't even know what they're putting fires out with. So, you know, thermal imaging cameras to them, gear to them, FDNY mobile command post, high-rise simulators. FDNY didn't have a high-rise tower. I'm like, wait a minute, what? I have one at Suffolk County Fire Academy. They didn't have one. He built them that, stuck a flashover simulator on the roof of it. And he continues to give, to raise money.
Yes.
And not just for FDNY, obviously, you know, but, you know, through Steve Sanguidoce. You know, high-rise, you know, affordable towers.
Affordable drill towers,
now, it is affordable, and it's a drill tower. A lot of guys don't like scaffolding. You know what? Too bad. What do you have in your community? We're giving things affordably to different municipalities. The one thing, you know, Dennis used to always say, and he still does, he goes, "I hope someday that this foundation goes out of business." Well, you know, smash cut to lithium batteries. We ain't going out of business anytime soon, you know? And so the training, and gear. And the training aspect to the Leary Foundation brings me to the Joseph DiBernardo Foundation.
Sure.
Years ago, Chief DiBernardo said, "Is there any way you can?" He says, "Is there any way you could be our celebrity?" I said, "Chief, let me tell you what I tell everybody. If I'm your celebrity, you're in fucking trouble already." You know what I mean? So I says, the only ass I put in seats is my poor mother, and she's departed, So so then Mrs. D asked me, she said, "Would you please work with us?" And there was no way I was turning her down.
Sure.
So I went to Dennis and I said, "Is there any way you can give them money?" And he says, "Burke, people give me money from my foundation. I don't give it to you." And I said, "Well, maybe this time you do." So his company, his foundation got taken out of his hands. It was run now by this other company called Innovative Philanthropy. And, there was a time when Dennis would have cut the check right there. He couldn't do it anymore. Right. And so Chief D and a bunch of his guys got together and wrote a grant. And after 18 months, Dennis came back and gave them, made a grant to them. And I told Chief what the price was a year. And Chief was like, "Oh my God." And I said, "You're going to get that every year for 10 years. Oh my God. Everybody's mind was blown.
Wow.
And true to his word, Dennis has kept that promise. So now here you have DiBernardo under the auspices of Leary. Chief is out there training guys up. Okay. And, mostly a lot of it is bailout, but you got Ray McCormick, hose handling.
Sure.
You got,
we've been working with them for years now. Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Mike Champo, tower ladder operations. So you learn in baseball from the Yankees, you know what I mean, through these 100%. Through the DiBernardos, and it's wonderful because name another. There's guys out there doing their thing, but this is really the most energetic foundation I can think of in the fire service, and
super active.
And Dennis said last year we were at his firefighter challenge. He goes, we've trained up, 8,000 guys. I said, no. He goes, "What do you mean no?" I says, "No, you don't understand the fire service." I said, "If 8,000 guys are trained, they went back to their firehouse and trained 5 guys, and those 5 guys trained the next shift." You know what I mean? So your numbers are way off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. This
is the culture. And he's like, "Oh, we never thought about it like that." I said, "Yeah, you're up into the millions of firefighters trained because you decided to start a foundation and you chose to give money to Chief D, and Chief D went out there and started training guys." So, nobody's looking for any stripes or ribbons or medals on this. Everybody's just looking to get another brother home.
That's it.
In the face of the job.
This episode's brought to you by Teledyne FLIR. Teledyne FLIR is the originator and creator of thermal imaging technology. In 2013, FLIR launched the K-Series camera for the public safety sector, in particular firefighting. They have created cameras over the last 10 years for every position on the fire ground. From tactical to situational, their cameras help us make the right decisions on the fire ground. So check out Teledyne FLIR, check out their product offerings, and engage them on their social media and ask them for more information and education in regards to their product. Teledyne FLIR is producing one of the best cameras on the market, and they're a proud sponsor and partner of the National Fire Radio podcast. So go over to www.flir.com and look up the public safety file, and you'll find the latest offerings from Teledyne FLIR. Yeah. So I'm looking at a few things. Leary Firefighter Foundation, which has been super active, obviously. You work with the FDNY Foundation, the FDNY Fire Family Transport Foundation, and the Lieutenant Joseph DiBernardo Foundation.
Right.
And then there's another organization listed for you too, VetHack, that you explained to me earlier too, which is a veteran, platform that you work with as well. Where did that all come from you? Like giving back like that, working with, taking the abilities that you have in life through your acting and your relationships that you've built there, and then paying it forward through philanthropy and working with and being, active with these organizations. Like, where did that come from? Was that something always ingrained in you, or was it just a way to give back? I mean, where's that come from?
I couldn't tell you. I guess my parents being immigrants,
Yeah.
this country has been very good was good to them, was good, modestly good to them, I should say. They didn't have very, extravagant lives.
But they worked hard for everything they had. I can guarantee you that.
Forget about it.
Yeah.
Forget about it. But I'll tell you straight up, I don't have golf clubs. I don't smoke cigars. I don't have a boat. I don't have any toys. I have no toys.
Got
you know what I mean? What do I want that shit for? It's just shit around my neck. I love getting out there. I love training. I love drilling. This is for my fellow members to tell you. Do you know what I mean? But anybody who knows me knows that I would be rather out, connecting with people on that basis, because that has meaning to me. That makes memories to me. And, I think, again, in the shadow of Paddy Brown, you know what I mean? This guy, I wear his bracelet. I look at his picture every day. I try to conduct myself and live as though he were right next to me.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. Well, I'm sure he is, and I'm sure he's very proud of what you've done and who you are and who you've become, for sure. Talk to me a little bit about what the fire service has done for you. I mean, joining it later in life, like we've talked about now. Did you know that this was something that you needed? Like, I know that's a loaded question, but
I'll tell you one thing. Honestly, when I don't need to predicate everything with honesty, because this is all I'm going to be. My first fire, I was out of the academy 8 months, and 2 things happened on this fire. We had rubbish fires, we had down power lines, gas leaks, but this was ripping out a couple windows, and I'm flaking out a line, and I got a great pump operator. I know he's going to get me water like fucking really quick. And you know who's standing in front of my rig?
Nope.
Billy Goldfeder. And he's standing there with the camera, and his hands were shaking a little. And I go, "Hi, Chief," like that. And he goes, "Hey." And I said, "Little performance pressure here, huh?" And he goes, "Oh, I'll get the fuck out of here if you want." He says, "No, you're fine." Like this. And now I'm thinking to myself, we gotta go to work.
Yeah, now it's time to work.
We gotta go to a good job, or else I'm gonna wind up on this guy's website. So anyway, a couple things happened. I went to cinch my face piece, and I snapped it off. Rookie move. I pulled outward instead of backwards. And I said to another guy, I said, "Let me have your face piece." And he goes, "Whoa!" I said, "Bullshit me. Let me have your face piece." And I'm putting the face piece on, and I'm outside. And it's my wrist and everything's starting to get hot now because it's really blowing down the hallway. It's banked down like very bad. And as I'm turning my air on, all of a sudden, I say to myself, because I'm going to push the hall, but it's really hot even at the door. And I remember saying to myself, wait a minute. I didn't sign on for this.
Really?
Okay. And then Paddy Brown's voice came to me and says, "Yo, bro, this is exactly what you signed on for." Okay, so it's kind of a moment of truth. So now we got to push. We push. We go down. We operate. The problem was that the hallway was very narrow. So everything. So I said, I can push this back. We operated one room. Then we went to the next room and the next room, and then I had a malfunction in the mask. The mask stopped. Something in the regulator stopped, and I was like, "Whoa!" After operating, assertively for 7 minutes, let's say it was. And I was like, wow, I got to get out of here. So I popped out. And then during COVID, I remember driving the ambulance for, the designation is pandemic. So you throw, and I remember going, "Oh man, I didn't sign up for this." And Paddy Brown's voice again, "This is exactly what you signed up for, actor boy," So it's that, professionalism is professionalism. You want to conduct yourself at a certain level or exceed that level. You know what I mean? You never want to go below it,
Sure.
And in the fire services, which, because it's a learning culture, you can always try and exceed it in some way at some level, simply by your demeanor with your fellow members, being courteous, being kind. And then in the same thing with my acting profession, I have the New York Teamsters. "Hey, Burke, you're not supposed to be here for another hour," because it's cool to show up late, or and I'm like, bullshit. I show up early.
Yeah,
because I'm pinching myself that I get to do this.
Awesome.
So you fucking be sure I'm going to be early.
Yeah,
and so it's all I think about professionalism, really.
It's character, man. It's integrity. It's character.
Here's
the thing, right? Which I find very interesting is, the small Paddy Brown on your shoulder, like, no, this is what you signed up for. Like, I think every single person in the fire service has had a moment where they doubted the situation or their actions at that moment and something pushed them to go. And I think that's super important because there's people that probably doubt themselves, and there's times where you might have doubts, but you got to have that inner voice and fortitude to push forward. And, for you, it came in regards to a friend who, was there to push you ahead. And I think that's a very powerful moment for you. I could only imagine.
In theology, it's called profound doubt.
There it is.
So he's Jesus Christ. He's on the cross, and basically he says, "My God, why?" He's saying to his father, "Hey, Pop, what happened?"
Yep.
What? And so even Christ himself is expressing doubt, and so in our lives, but that moment you're talking about, how many firemen have rolled up and go, "Oh boy, this is bad." Do you know what I mean? Every guy who had, on 9/11 looked up and said, how are we even gonna, and everybody, you're always trying to, make it work in your head. Okay, if we stretch this way, or if this happens, you're always trying to make it work. But when you pull up and, Golfetta calls it the Super Bowl, you know what I mean? And, we had a fire a couple of Octobers ago, or November, 68 mile an hour gusts. It's some crazy nor'easter taking 3-4 houses. And this poor young lieutenant with me, she goes, "Is this bad?" And I said, "This is particularly bad."
Is this bad?
Well, and I'm being like, I'm using big. I'm like, this is particularly bad. I'm not trying to be flip, but I said to her, this is particularly bad. We took the downwind side of the fire, and it was just a 2.5 inch and 1 3/4 inch, and we're just trying to hold it, and we did, but it was particularly a bad night, and because as I walked up there's one thing to have embers. It's another thing to have like shoe boxes of freaking, shit hitting you at 50 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just like, boy, this is like a firestorm. And so things can get really weird here. We had mutual aid coming across the bay. They were trying to, apparently, I heard the story, they were trying to land somewhere that was like D-Day. They couldn't, they couldn't get there. Right. I mean, and when I saw them come, we're always happy to see those guys on a lot of fire ground. I think, when mutual aid shows up, it's like, we got it. Well, out here, you're gonna get beaten, and then you're only too glad. Oh, thank you guys for coming here. Take it. It's like, and they're always amenable.
You got a lot
overhaul or anything.
What do they call it? John Wayne time. I mean, you got, you're on a barrier island of Long Island, New York. So not only are you dealing with those winds and the weather conditions and beach and everything else, but man, if you get a large enough fire and you need additional resources, they're not going to be there in 3 minutes.
No, it'll take them the better part of quick as 45 minutes, an hour.
Yeah, and so
when Paddy Brown used to, we'd hang out here well before I was a volunteer. He'd say, "Who fights the fires out here?" And I'd say, "Oh, Joe, Jim, Joe." And he'd say, "Do they train for conflagrations?" And I'm like, "What's a conflagration?" I said, "What's a conflagration?"
Yeah, right.
He goes, "Bob, one go, they all go." And I says, "Oh, no, I don't know if they do or not. I don't really know." And now that's all I do. It's like, how many of us? We're 4 turning out tonight. Okay, everything I do is always short man. Of
course.
Man. You have volunteers in a seasonal department, chronically understaffed. It's like show, place, and win of bad shit can possibly happen. And so you see, your instinct is to stretch a line and start to operate. No. Stretch 4 or 5 lines, because there's people going to be coming. Do you know what I mean? So stretch the lines, and we'll get water in some of them, but you got to really figure out how to stop what's going on quickly, because there's so few of you to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's no bowing out. I mean, it's you're committed, man. Whether you got 40 minutes ahead of you before your next in companies get there. Guess what? Like, you don't get to sit on the tailboard and go, "Ooh, I just took a beating on that first line." Like, no.
Well,
buddy.
it's funny because you can enter like the house next door in exposure, and let me get a line in that house upstairs right away. Joe, go get in there right away up to that second floor, because I don't want to put that thing out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just want to knock that thing right now. So just. You got a guy inside pulling ceiling, getting the water going, and come back out. It's like, okay, it's out. Okay, let's get back to these 2 houses. So it's mayhem. You know what I mean? Sometimes, but again, very straightforward. Balloon constructed wood frame. residential.
Sure.
You have taxpayers, you have a little chlorine, you have a lot of LPG because everything out here is no gas lines, everything is LPG.
Got it.
And when those things let go, that's interesting. We had 3 of them let go one night in front of me, and I never in my life, that gets your attention.
That was no movie set.
No, that was no movie set. And I've been on movie sets with a lot of bombs.
Exactly.
Everybody over the radio is like, what's up? And I'm like, oh, good, we're continuing to operate. And but that got my attention. When we went to inspect them afterwards, there were levies in 100-pounders, and I don't know how much actual gas was in them at the time, but so you just try and do your best as efficiently as possible, as mindfully as possible. I look at some of these guys turning out in Detroit and the methodology and the pace with which they move. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nobody's, frantic. Nobody's, just stay calm. There's not a lot of us. We're going to, any good instructor will tell you, the history of the fire service tells you that every fire eventually goes out. So let's everybody go home. Everybody stay safe. Everybody operate as efficiently as possible.
I get it. I mean, and that's where, your own makeups, your demographics of where you come from, your response area, you know it, you know how to operate within it. And it might be very different from the next town over, let alone the next state or community. I mean, it just varies based upon what you know and how you operate, for sure, man. And
when we go out to our academy, they know what we have. These guys come out here. So, I'm not looking to say that we do anything. No. We know what's being asked of us in the fire service in these particular districts.
Yeah,
that's all. No more, no less. And and so we try to operate and train as diligently as possible in those areas.
What has it done for you? I mean, do you love it? I mean, did you fall hard for it when you got there? After that first fire where you had that moment and you're like, what the hell am I doing? 41, 42 years old. I got a successful acting career. Life is good, pretty squared away. And here I am laying, putting myself in harm's way like this. Were you bitten? Did it grab you and just shake you or what?
Yes and no. The adrenaline was interesting. I'm not a big, I don't jump out of planes and things like that.
All right. Got it.
But I trained in Okinawan karate for years and years and years. And when I achieved my black belt, and it took me 6 years to get the black belt because they just weren't giving out belts where I trained. Wow. And I remember when I was handed my belt, my teacher looked at me like, kind of, I don't know what you would call this look. He goes, work hard and someday you'll deserve that. And I was like, whoa, thanks for nothing.
Wow.
So anyway, so what I realized at that moment was not what I knew. Black belt only means now you're a serious student. That's all that means.
That's right.
It doesn't mean I could kill a guy with my hand. No. It means now you're a serious student of this discipline. So as I ventured into the fire service, the thing that used to shake me more than anything was what I didn't know. Do you know what I mean? What I couldn't bring to the table, mechanically, I'm a little challenged, you know what I mean? So I really had to try and, force myself to bring myself up to speed. So the experience in the fire service is it was always been about what I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how much there is to learn. Do I love it? I like it a lot. You know what I mean? I hate when I fuck up, when I do something wrong or I yell at somebody, or I remember one day it was simple. It was a simple thing. I walked away from the rig to watch a helicopter land, and over the loudspeaker of the rig says, Burke, return to the rig. And I was like, oh my, that mortified me that I should have freelanced a little, you know what I mean? And I became very cognizant of that. Then, so anyway, I don't like getting in fucking trouble. I like, I'm a follower. I like to just follow the order and do my task as best as possible. But, I was kind of bitten in certain respects, but it was, I would rather have my friend back, you know what I mean?
Of course.
And 9/11 never happened.
Of course.
And me go on my merry way. But so be it. It's a way to honor him, and not in a weirdo idol like fashion.
I get it.
It's just a simple way to help our community. It's the way our nation began, with volunteers and people helping each other. A guy said to me just recently, he goes, well, all firemen have volunteered. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, all firemen are volunteers. Some of them just get paid. And I was like, oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's something to be said for that, right? It's people that do it as a career chose to do it, right?
But I enjoy it. I enjoy when I see it done well. I enjoy the professionalism of it, the quiet professionalism of it. When I go to FDNY and I see some of my buddies who I only see once a year, or some other guys that I've known for many, many years, and they get a kick out of me doing it, and I am very respectful and in awe of them.
Yeah,
the way they conduct themselves on the fire ground.
I am too. I'm very similar in that regard with you. I am in awe of the professionalism that I see daily with a lot of these people, and for me, I just sit back and take it all in, and I go, man, this is something to watch. You know.
Yeah, when you see a guy whose head is in the game, 100, not 100%, 110%.
Yes.
Okay, so like you're on the fire ground, you're pushing a line, you're at 80% of your physical capacity that night. And they say, get the line to the second floor. And you're like, what? And now you got to get to the second floor. Now you got to operate. And now you have some other problem. And so now your engine is operating at 110%. You're like, whoa, I don't know if I could. It's like Quint keeping the boat. The boat starts smoking. Yeah. So that's the question now that I'm starting to ask myself: am I becoming a liability? But there's guys turning out in their 70s.
You're not even close to being a liability.
No, actually, I hope not. But at the same time, the professionalism. I saw a guy one night just at the academy, FDNY guy, and he just he put his mask on with one hand, like just cinched it up tight, one hand, one hand with a glove.
Yeah,
and I'm like. So I'm out here practicing with gloves for years. I could, I'm a fish, but like with one hand, and I'm like, look at this dude. So little things like that. The efficiency of the job. I respect that. I see it as an art form, and when it's done to that level, Well,
I mean, listen, you're doing it to your level. I mean, you could have signed on, did your civic duty, feel good that you're wearing a T-shirt and being a member of a fire department. It doesn't mean that you have to practice putting your mask on with gloves, right? So, like, for me, I sit here talking with you, but like, I think you bought in. I think you're in.
I could only because I couldn't honor my friend's memory and be any less than
there you go.
Than the level, because over the years you hear like how this guy operated. We were joking, 2 of his citations corresponded with the medal he received. 2 different times the citation had the word acrobatics in it. We howled, we laughed.
Oh my gosh!
Well, what did he do? Well, he swung from one fire escape to the other, and I'm like, with a tank, and he go with air, and he goes, yeah, and I'm like, oh my god. They're forced to put the word acrobatics in the citation. Who does this? But he told me about some of his the grabs he made and things like this, and and again, he goes, you never do it alone. You're always with somebody, and he was always so. I told this to Mickey Conboy's son one night. We were at the Armory years ago after a Paddy's Day parade, and somebody drunk says to Paddy Brown, they said, what's it like to be, the best fireman in New York City? And Paddy goes, I don't know. Why don't you go ask Mickey Conboy? Like that. He was always like, diverting, diffusing. And
character, man.
Because, I saw his chest once, his chest salad, his medals, and he dressed it down to like 14. I said, where'd the rest of them go? He goes, I took them off. I said, what do you mean? He goes, these are the ones that mean something to me. I said, shouldn't you wear all of your shit? He goes, nah. He goes, it bugs guys out. Like this. I was like, okay. Like this.
It's incredible.
But he was a funny guy, and but he loved the job since he was a child. I think it was an emotional and a spiritual place for him. The firehouse, scanners, buffing fires, sneaking out of his house at night. I heard a story the other day. This guy who's writing a book on Pat said he went, him and this guy, Butch, I can't remember, he's a captain up in the Bronx. Can't think of his last name. Getting on a train to go to the Newark riots, as kids. There's pictures of them holding their gear on the subway.
No way. That's absurd. Yeah. That's incredible.
That's
it's stories like that, man, that I just, that there's some iconic people in the fire service that, just they're standouts. And obviously Paddy Brown was one of them. He was a standout on his own job, let alone across the board in the American fire service. But it's the storytelling like that is so important, right? Like, we need stories like that to keep the job fun and light and enjoyable. And, living through or imagining some of these stories that these guys have actually done, when you start breaking down these stories and you actually hear that they're true, that it's not just some, urban legend, propaganda. This is legit storytelling that came from real experiences. It really just makes this job so much better. At least I think so.
Yeah, and it ends up being a part of the culture.
Yes.
The culture is the glue.
I love it.
That's the glue that keeps it. And the oral tradition of storytelling, that's part of it. The firehouse kitchen, turning out for LODDs. This is the culture, and the culture is the glue. And the common denominator. The common denominator is it's a life and death proposition. Fire doesn't care who you are or where you come from, or how much you know. That's the common denominator. Paddy Brown said, what did he say? You can do this job absolutely right and still get killed.
Yeah.
So that there's a humility in knowing that was his exact quote. I think you can do this job absolutely right and still get killed. So.
Yeah. Well, I for sure. I mean, he's got more quotes than, I got years on the job, I mean, he's just, it was, and for you to be exposed to that, for you to have friends like that, and so on, I would say that he's very proud of who you are and what you've done, and your work, obviously, just in your local community and falling in love with the fire service like that, but also working on behalf of these foundations and raising money and awareness, more importantly, I think, is huge. And bridging that gap between the acting world, Hollywood, and the American fire service is powerful, and we need more help on those levels so that we can really portray what's truly being done. Because like you said, you didn't know. You had all these buddies that were firemen growing up, and you still didn't know what the job truly entailed or what it was all about. So, brother, what a great conversation today, man. Thank you. Thanks for joining me.
Jeremy, thank you. Listen, for your work and your service and getting out there and, all these, again, it's because of the internet has become another aspect and element of the culture.
Yeah.
Like it or not. And I think it's wonderful because, we're all sending each other quotes, and there was a speech you gave there maybe 2 weeks ago about how the department let you down, and we all sent it to each other.
Really?
And yeah, oh my God, because we have our own fair share of toxicity here. Of
course, everybody does.
And it's great. But everybody thinks, oh no, you don't have it like we have it. It's like,
yeah.
no, yes we do. You know what I mean? So that can be very disparaging and detrimental. You're trying to do your best job, and yet you have these elements of crazy behavior. It's narcissism. I don't even know what it is, and I leave it alone. But you just try and keep your head down and do the best job. But again, back to the National Fire Radio, and that's a whole other mission, and you do it well, and you do it professionally. You give it the absolute honor and dignity that the fire service deserves, and so I thank you for that personally. And I'm sure a lot of guys out there do.
Brother, thank you. That means a lot. Means a lot coming from you and this newfound friendship that we have, because I get to call you Bobby, which, now we're friends. But brother, just, that truly is important to me. It's the relationships that we make, and it's paying it forward and pushing it ahead. And,
I say to Dennis Leary, I said, you get up there and you make a couple of speeches. I said, never disparage your commitment, your actions, because I said, I'm going to tell you right now, guys are going home. Guys and gals, members are going home because of the work you do.
100%.
And that goes for you.
Yep.
That goes for you too.
Well,
so
thank you. That's very kind. Very kind. But I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I'm grateful for guys like yourself that are willing to give me an hour of their day to share their story, because I think, people will get something out of every story we tell. Everybody has a story. Everybody has experiences to share.
Absolutely.
And we can all learn something from everybody. And so if we can just put that out there and continue to put it out there, and if we affect change in one person's life or 1,000 people, you know what? It doesn't matter to me. It's we're just doing what we think is right. And I think that's, you know, to me, the theme today with the other podcasts I've done, it's always doing the right things, doing the right thing. It's always going to be the right thing.
Yeah, the next right thing. Yeah, and like again, so a lot of people want to do stuff and they don't know what to do and everything. And volunteerism is a great way to go. Everybody thinks, oh, it can't be me. It can't be me. Well, why can't it be you? You know what I mean? If you're thinking about joining the volunteer service, the numbers are low. The fire service in this country needs your help. We're still one of those countries where you dial 911, somebody is coming. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Which is not the way it is in a lot of places. But you can be a part of it and or just support your local fire department because they're not getting everything they need. You know what I mean? Just don't. It might look like they are, but they are certainly not. So and what they need more than anything, equipment or otherwise, is personnel, as people. So
yeah,
to the young people out there who see if a dopey actor like me can do it, you can do it also.
Oh, well, on that note, this dopey actor, come on, get out of here, crazy. Well, listen, Bobby, thank you very much for joining me today. This was an absolute honor to have you on to learn a little bit about your story. I'd love to get out. I want to get out to your part of Long Island. I want to see what it's like out there. So we're going to have to arrange something. I'd love to come out there. I'm just inviting myself out to your fire department.
Yeah,
so.
you have an open invite. We're going to do another Warrior Appreciation Day. That might be a good time.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I know Goldfeder likes to come out here, but he doesn't like to. He always tells me, never tell anybody I'm here. Never tell anybody I'm here.
Love that.
So it's a big secret when he gets here.
Yeah.
He took a picture with my oldest son once, and they sent it to me. And my son was getting out of the water from surfing, and he goes, "Hey, Pop, I met this guy. He knows you." So anyway, I posted it. I don't know, and I don't really post a lot, but I put. Goldfeder calls me. He's like, "Dude, what are you doing?" I go, "What are you?" He goes, "I don't want anybody to know I'm out here." I was like, "Okay, I'm sorry." So it's a big secret because the guy needs. He needs 5 minutes peace to himself because no matter where he goes, somebody wants a piece of him.
It's that signature mustache, man.
I'll tell you what. But he's great. He's great. He's done a lot for us out here.
And, I had him on the show probably a month or two ago. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation.
Love the guy.
Him. Yeah,
heart's in the right place. A lot of knowledge and a real gift at sharing it.
For sure. So. Bobby Burke, thank you,
Jared,
brother.
all the best, brother.
Appreciate you. Stay right.
Nice
stay right here. I'm just going to sign off the podcast, and I just want to talk to you off the air for 1 second, okay?
Very good.
Cool. Thank you again, man. Appreciate you. Everyone, thank you for tuning in to the National Fire Radio Podcast. Robert Burke, Bobby Burke, because he's now my friend. I can call him that. I'm excited about it. Listen, man, this is a guy that has spent his career in the American acting machine, TV, movie roles across the board. You'll know him from there, but his passion, and he loves the fire service, and that's what it's all about. 22 years with the Ocean Beach, New York Fire Department. Great conversation today. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the National Fire Radio Podcast. We appreciate your support. And do me a favor, take this conversation, take it back to the firehouse and talk about it, because when we talk about the job, we're making the job better. We'll see you at the next one. Thanks for tuning in. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.